Greetings in the name of the Lord Jesus Christ. I'm running my testimony. We just left off. It was 1993. My record, Excel and Death Before Dishonor, Sodom in America, was released. And 1992 was a year of big things for me, as well as big downfall for me. I had been saved about 3.5 years. Walking strong with the Lord. Many of my friends, I had adapted the name or the slogan of Walking Concordance, because a lot of people could ask Todd, hey, where's this verse at, or what's this talking about? And I generally I knew, had a lot of head knowledge of the Bible, and my heart got tainted somehow. I started lusting for some of the old things. And that up to that time, the Lord was using me mightily in the Christian industry. I was putting bass lines on several people's albums. I was on Freedom of Soul's album. I was on Apocalypse's album. I was on Soldiers for Christ, on 2 or 3 of the Dynamic Twins album. Played about 9 to 10 bass lines on the Tunnel Rats first album. Was on showed up on E-Rock's album. Did some studio work with Oz Fox and Chucky Perez. Did some demo work for the Gospel Gangsters. Those are just names that people would probably know, and then I did a lot of work with in my opinion, equally important crews that maybe a lot of people don't know. I was working with Matthew Lawrence, with Bernardo Sandoval and James Timoney, Justin Kisson, and shared the stage, or shared events with many bands. Played at many festivals, or a lot of Christian bands were headlining that were big. I played with. I was maybe gonna get a spot with Adam again. There was a situation with their bass player where maybe he wasn't going to play, so I got to rehearse with Gene Eugene and the drummer from Whiteheart. I don't remember his name. It's the black dude, real good drummer. Got to sit in with them. Did some work. Jammed with Ronnie Martin and Jason Martin. I could go on and on. That's not what I want to get into. But the Lord was using me mightily at that time, and I like to say is I fell sucker to the devil's attack, and surprisingly, unbeknownst to him, that this would backfire on him one day. I believe he ran me into my wife, who at that time was far from saved, far from being a Christian, and whom I became very infatuated with. It happened because I was backslidden. I had started dipping into drugs, and then it started being more steady. And it's kind of weird when you're in a Christian scene, and that's what you're doing, but then behind the scenes you're doing drugs and drinking. It's kind of hard to get out of that Christian scene, because that's what people know that you are and what you're doing. Well, eventually it became known to people who I was around, and it was being broadcasted. And the Lord was, and I praise His name for doing it, because I know a lot of Christian groups out there that for years have had hidden sin in their life, and the Lord, I don't know if the word is allowed or for some reason or another, it continued, their ministry, if you want to call it that, continued to go on while having this hidden sin. Well, for me, from that point on until I got things correct, my ministry did not flourish. The door shut on me quickly, and I'm glad for that. It's very unfortunate because of what was manifested through me at that time, which I think, very in a very humble sense, was a revolutionary product at that time. In the early 90s, I did a record that combined heavy metal and hip-hop, which was very rare at that time, and especially in the Christian scene. I think safely I could say that I had the first rapcore album that came out in the Christian industry. I may not have been the first one doing it. I started in 92, and then I had a release at the top of 93, and I don't think anyone else had any national release yet. I was a very giving guy back then. I wasn't trying to steal all the glory. I had people on my record. I had all kinds of people on my record. I had Jimmy Brown from Deliverance, Mike Phillips, who was in Deliverance, Greg, the guitarist from, I think his last name was Lawless, I'm not sure, Greg from Adam Again. The Dynamic Twins were on it, Soup the Chemist was on it, MVP was on it, her sister Cheryl Sandler was on it, Tony Lee was on it, Bernardo would have been on it, but Bernardo from Faithful to the Cause, but he was upset with me for changing from hip-hop to this metal stuff, metal junk as he called it. But James Timney was on it, the drummer from EDL, his name was Eric, and Ted Cookley was on it. Some of the cats from LPG,